This is Impact Healthcare, people and strategies that are disrupting the health benefits industry. And now, here's your host, healthcare benefits industry expert and the originator of the transparent health benefits movement, Lester Morales.
Welcome back to another episode, a solo episode, a recap episode of the Impact Healthcare podcast. And we're recapping April. And this is a little unusual because in April we had a solo episode and we had one with a guest. And so I think as I'm looking at my notes, the main word that I want to think about and the theme of this is strategy. Everything that we talked about in April, whether it was me solo episode or with Seppa, our guest in our second podcast of the month, was all around having a strategy, having a plan. It was talking about different ideas, different strategies, but those strategies can only be deployed in the context of a bigger plan. And that's what I finally kind of light bulb moment as I'm writing these notes down. And I participated in a panel yesterday, and it just seems like, as my friend Josh Butler always says, that most employers are in a faith-based model. They're just hoping and praying that something is going to go right and that they're going to have a good year. It's not done on purpose. It's not done because they have a plan. It is literally, we make a reaction based on the renewal of that year. And that's the theme of this. So my first question as I start off, audience, do you have a plan? Does your second or third largest expense, hey, brokers, does your clients, are you setting their plan? Do you have a plan that is going to say, we want to get to here? How do you get in a car wanting to go somewhere, pick up your GPS, your phone, whatever it might be, and what are you punching in? If you don't know where you're going, how do you get there? A quote I heard the other day that I loved is, if you don't have a plan about where you're going, you're going to get there. And that there might not be where you want to go. And so, in the first episode of the month, it was a solo episode, and I was recapping some of the travels that I've had this month. Well, I guess that was, in the earlier time, it was Southern California, which I am sitting in the same office I was with Memorial Care. I went up to Napa for the MedTrans captive event and over to North Carolina for the North Carolina Coalition on Health, a session that they had with employers. And so, kind of recapping some of the things that we talked about. Direct contracting. I literally am sitting in a hospital location right now with a very innovative hospital who loves the conversation around bringing health care closer to business. And yesterday, we actually had a session with the Orange County Business Council, OCBC, their business connection session. And Jeff Ball, the executive director, what a wonderful man who foresight on bringing businesses together on a frequent basis to talk about things. I heard him talking about the next episode in May being about tariffs, but this episode was all around healthcare. The room was full, standing room only, over 100 people, talking about what most people dread the conversation, which is health care and health insurance. And on the panel was myself, accompanied with Chris from here at Memorial Care, who leads their direct-to-employer strategy, and then a local advisor here from the Orange County market. We talked about the different trends that people are seeing, the different strategies that organizations are taking. We talked a lot about the conversation around direct contracting. And, you know, one of the biggest things that I think was an aha moment for everybody is I asked the audience the number one strategy that employers and their advisors have taken to mitigate or at least try to control rising healthcare costs. What do you think that answer was? Yeah, I can imagine people, everybody saying, duh, we know what that is. Increased copays, deductibles, out of pockets, take more out of employees' paychecks. And so we're just used to that. As an industry, we are used to every single year something is going up. And when you think about it, what other line item in an employer's P&L goes up every single year? And we've now just become accustomed to it. As Nelson Griswold always says, healthcare's biggest lie that the industry has worked super hard at getting ingrained in people's head. And it is more than ingrained. It is literally a like employers are paralyzed with this thought of 8 to 12% rate increases. They judge whether they had a good year or not based on a frivolous, stupid benchmark of people thinking that 8, 10, 12, 15% increases is normal. So I asked the audience, that, and of course everybody said the same thing. Hey, increasing out of pockets, passing on more cost to the members, the employees and their family is the number one strategy. Now flip that conversation around. What does a hospital call that? And that answer obviously is an accounts receivable, collections, right? Think about that. Your employees, if you're an employer, the advisors, your clients' employees continuously year after year have a little bit more coming out of their paycheck and have a little bit more of financial responsibility at time of care. Deductibles are higher, co-pays are higher. And I remember even as an advisor in my early years going back to employers saying, it's only 3 or 4 more people that are affected. It's only 5 or 10 more dollars. It's only $1,000 of a deductible or an out of pocket. Flip that around. Flip that around and put your hospital hat on, which a lot of people would probably point to the hospital as one of the culprits, right? One of the people in this whole ecosystem of healthcare and health insurance. It's part of the problem. And, for most hospitals, not Memorial Care, but for most hospitals, I would tend to agree. The goal of the hospital needs to be to fill beds. And when you think about that notion and talk about it in correlation with the deductible conversation, I ask you back to that collection question. The hospitals continuously, year after year, have to collect more and more. Think about it. Your deductible, your out-of-pocket advisors, the average deductible and out-of-pocket for your clients is probably $2, 3, 4, $5,000 of a deductible, 5, 6, 8, 10, 15, $20,000 of an out-of-pocket max. Now I want you to ask yourself, the average employee, the average household in your plans, do they have that kind of money? If that answer is no, the reality of it is in order to go get that service, that member is now going on a payment program. They're paying $10, $15, $20, $50 each paycheck for the existence of time. 67% of personal bankruptcies happen because of medical expenses. And so now the reality of it is the deductible game, the out-of-pocket game we play over here is now an accounts receivable game over here. And that direct contracting conversation clears that all up. It puts the real payer of healthcare aligned with the healthcare provider. And, not only was this a wow factor in yesterday's OCBC event, we had a lot of employers are like, man, that's the first time I thought about it like that. We had a lot of advisors kind of saying, man, you know what? This actually makes me feel proud if I can help employers kind of navigate through another tunnel, because at that point, it's a win-win-win. The employer gets to offer their employees, their number one asset, a better benefit. Employees and their families get a better benefit, right? They get a better plan design, less out of pocket. And for the hospital, they get a better patient. The reality of that patient conversation is a patient who has a lesser out of pocket cost is a better patient for that hospital. And if we were able to eliminate some of the collection risk, the accounts receivable risk of a hospital, that hospital's financials increase dramatically. Therefore, they're needing to bill less because they're collecting more. And so it was a fascinating conversation yesterday. It is one of those things that, again, if you missed that episode, I highly, highly recommend you going back and thinking and talking about that. But the rest of that episode, about captives and coalitions and people bringing together, you know, captives, one of the sexiest words in our business. If health insurance can be considered sexy, the word captive is all over the place. And the Medtrans, captive model has, piqued the interest of a lot of people because of the control and the understanding that everybody who's entering that pool, it's probably one of the cleanest pools you're gonna see. So, you know, the recap of the solo episode, again, fires me up around the word strategy, plan, strategic path. Whatever you wanna call it, where are we trying to go, and how are we going to get there? What are the KPIs? Because healthcare is built on a bunch of misaligned KPIs. The KPI of the major insurance company is is opposite, is completely in conflict with the KPI of employers and their employees. Healthcare organizations, health insurance organizations want to do as much service, make more money, and therefore healthcare costs continue to rise. Where if you're a consumer, which everybody who's listening to my voice right now is a consumer of healthcare, the consumer wants to lower cost. And so, when you think about that, that is just a huge thing. The second episode of the month, which, my gosh, if you ever want to listen to and see a just remarkable human being, Seppa, um, from Motion, she's the VP of People and Learning, and what an amazing human being. So bashful, so shy, so not realizing what a badass she really is. And that word strategic path, plan, strategy really comes into that conversation with Seppa, because what we talked about is when she got in charge and really started to look at this, she realized that lots of things were happening, but was it happening in correlation with what do employees really need? And, her advisor, a good buddy of mine, Ed Legande, a former Benefits Pro advisor of the year, and just a complete stud of an advisor, took a partnership with her. And the way they explained, Seppa explained the process that they took was truly a partnership. Truly, this wasn't a hey, sit down and let me tell you what we're gonna do conversation. This was a let's sit down and figure this out together. And so Seppa's big thing was trying to understand the types of benefits and challenges that employees have at different parts of the employee life cycle. So when you think about it, you're just at a school and it's your first job out of college. Well, you're not necessarily worried about retirement benefits. You're worried about paying off your student loans. You're wanting to learn and consume as much stuff. Maybe you're trying to think about saving for a house. So you're very early on. And then you get married and your family planning and you're, again, saving up for that house, buying that first house. Now you've got kids and you've got childcare issues, and now your parents are getting older, and so you've got big child care issues. You've now purchased your house. Now you're starting to be, my age, 45 and older. And now you're starting to think about, hey, retirement. I'm going to want to do that. Do I have? So it was such an interesting conversation that, I don't think a lot of HR professionals come into their position and kind of take a step back and look at what they're doing. They usually inherit, obviously, something that somebody else had put in. And most people play within those rules. And not Seppa, not with Ed's leadership and partnership. The reality of it is they said, I don't see no lions. I don't see no old program. I want to put and think about the things that we are going to do based on our employees and where they are on their employee life cycle, and taking a look at where they need to recruit and retain the most key, talent. I mean, let's be honest. If, your employee population, the people that bring the most amount of value to your organization are in this demographic or look like this, any smart professional would say we gotta start there first. And so it was really interesting to see their path and kind of mapping out that they went from fully insured to self-insured. Why? It gives them the flexibility. It gives them the data. It gave them the savings to reinvest into certain things. So they started with a moving from a fully insured to a self-insured model, and were very, very, very intentional about the design. And so they added family planning, and that family planning benefit, interesting, came as a result of missing out on a couple of key hires. So people who, she and they as an organization wanted to recruit were saying, hey, this benefit isn't here, and this other organization offers this benefit. I'm gonna go over there. They could have the best culture, they could be paying more, but if that was a hot button on somebody's mind. So they talked about it, and, the best part of the story, and this is the second time I had this conversation with Seppa, but she tells me the reward at the end of that rainbow from that story is that she's had several employees who have come to her and thanked her for putting in these benefits, because they've been able to use the benefits to grow their families, adoption, infertility, things of that nature. I mean, uh, think about it. As an HR professional, some of the things that you have to do, advisors, some of the things that we have to do is kind of feels like the Grim Reaper, right? You're always bad news. It might be riffs, it might be disciplinary, it might be pips, it might be all sorts of things. But at the end of the day, a lot of it is business necessary, but business necessary still sometimes it hurts. You don't want to do that. And so, when's the last time an employee came to you and said, hey, thank you so much for the benefits that you put in. Man, seeing her face, and I've seen her before. Again, she gets emotional hearing that, because and she takes personal pride about the benefits program um, that they put together. Talked about virtual care with Galileo, and boosting access to care. I mean, you've got people that are working long hours and have kids and taking kids, to soccer practice and baseball and plays and all of that stuff. Having a virtual set of doctors in your pocket. And this isn't a telemedicine like normal thing. Galileo is a platform that is second to none. And being able to not only help with the episodic and the snotty nose and my kid has an earache type of stuff, what do I do? But more so being an extension of your care team and helping you truly navigate some of that. Just an amazing platform. And she told stories about that. Um, talked about employees who had some serious cancer episodes, and because the access to data and things, they were able to, and the flexibility, they were able to seek care at one of the highest institutions for that and had a really good scenario. So all of that, bettering the benefit, giving a benefit and thinking about it according to the employee life cycle, and they still saved money. And with that savings, no, this wasn't an organization that worries about profit over people, people over profit, because they understand that people drive their profit. And they actually expanded the parental leave in elder care to support for their caregivers, like, through the savings of their health plan. Imagine that. I not only gave my benefits or gave my employees a better benefit, they got more stuff. We saved money and we bought them more stuff with it. You think employees are going to be grateful for that? You think that people are going to wanna come work there? That water cooler talk, that post that goes online saying, "I am so thankful for this employer who gave me the opportunity to extend my family, to take care of my mother, to access care when I was on vacation," whatever it might be. The reality of it is people wanna work for an organization that makes them feel cared for. How are you doing that with your employees? Man, that conversation was fire, and if you're an HR professional, I tell you, go listen to that episode, because you're gonna wanna see and hear from somebody else who's done it, the approach back to the strategic plan that was taken in order to get there. If you're an advisor, you're going to want to learn from Ed, and the way you talk to employers and the way you sit them down, the way you get them to buy into a process. This isn't a faith-based model. They ain't hoping and praying. This is, we're going to grandma's house. We put it in the GPS, and we might not get to grandma's house in one day, i.e. one plan year, but we're getting to grandma's house, and here's what the steps that we're going to take to get there. So advisors, you learn from Ed, HR, and organizations, you learn from Seppa, but this episode was straight fire, and you're going to want to see. So, April's theme is all about a strategic plan. And if you just sat here and heard this episode and you're an advisor that quotes insurance, you're an advisor that talks about things only according to the renewal, I plead, I urge, I encourage, I am kicking you in your hiney to change the way you talk to employers. They're going to have a plan next year. They're going to have employees next year. This is skating to where the puck needs to be. And, I just am thankful for Seppa. I am thankful for Eds, and I am thankful for all of you, our listeners. April was fantastic. I have been traveling a ton, so I am recording some more podcast episodes. I'm super excited to keep sharing and keep bringing on guests that are thought leaders and trailblazers, so that we can help you and you can help us impact healthcare. Thank you so much for listening to this recap episode, and we will see you on the next episode. Please share it. Please like it. Please send me an email. Let me know what you think. If you heard this, if you got to the end of this, send me an email, lester.morales@nextimpactllc.com. I would love to know, is there somebody or something you want to hear on the podcast? We will make it happen as long as it's about impacting healthcare, because that is what we like to do every day. We'll see you next time, guys. Thank you so much.
You've been listening to Impact Healthcare, people and strategies that are disrupting the health benefits industry with Lester Morales. Remember, the journey to getting 20% savings on your healthcare benefits starts with total transparency. Remember to subscribe to the Impact Healthcare podcast on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts.